then like with the people that you hang out with and you speak to, do they
Yeah.
have do they have this kind of this sense of foreboding about the climate crisis?
Um, yes and no. It's got to a sort of depressive state now where they're sort of like, well, it's happening. Let's just sort of party until we die, basically. Like it's this whole idea of we're not going to own a house, we're not going to have a habitable world for much longer. Let's just make the best of it.
I guess that makes
Like
sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
like that's literally just what it because people don't feel like they've got hope because none of the major parties are representing their interests because they
Mhm.
sort of like a lot of my friends who are left wing were so like pro Corbyn and so sort of happy with what he was saying,
Mhm.
and then obviously he was gotten rid of. They just don't have any hope anymore, and they've just accepted that things are fucked and that there's nothing they can do. So they've just
And
sort
this
of gone, well,
and the entire political class just fucking discarded them.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, and
Like
that's what go for it. Sorry, yeah.
I was in my town centre, and my Labour candidate um, was there, the same guy who's been fighting the every single like election in this constituency for like 15 years, and he keeps losing. And I was speaking to him, and my dad was with me. And as soon as he saw my dad was with me, he stopped speaking to me and started speaking to my dad immediately. Like he seems to have this like anti-young person agenda, and I think a lot of people feel like they're just not being listened to by anyone. So they just don't feel like they want to vote because they feel sort of marginalised by the system.
There's a kind of vicious cycle where
Yeah,
people don't feel represented, so they then don't vote, so they then don't get pandered to because they're not an electoral demographic,
yeah.
so they get even more disillusioned, and then they don't vote, they vote even less, and then just kind of repeat itself over and over time.
Well, yeah, it's like I don't know. There was obviously a lot of people who got into politics under Corbyn, and then a lot of them left because you can see the amount of like the membership numbers that dropped.
Hmm.
Um, but like so many of my friends that I spoke to, sort of post Corbyn, like I mean, I don't really feel there's sort of like I don't really feel like voting anymore. I don't want to be part of that system because it's never going to change, and it's just quite depressing because if the youth could, galvanize like they did under Corbyn, I think we could really, you know, do something, put a lot of pressure on the main parties, but that just isn't there anymore.
Yeah, like have you seen a video that I put out called "Every Millennial Should Watch This"?
I might have done. Remind me about what you spoke about.
Basically it was an article about a guy who was talking about how he spends his pension and how he gets
Yeah,
like £6,500 a month each month in like state pension and private pension and private equity, right? Talking
yeah,
about how he teaches his children how best to budget and to learn the value of money when he's getting literally like triple what I earn for having a job, just being a
mm,
pensioner. Um, and one of the things I talked about in that video was how I think that there's like a huge the problem that I have the thing that issue that I have is I don't think that Zoomers quite understand just how much that they've been how many opportunities they've had taken away from them, right?
yeah,
Like so the pension system like got so millennials missed out on like the proper lucrative pension system when they changed from defined benefit pensions to defined contribution pensions. As people started living longer, they couldn't afford to pay out based on final salary anymore. Instead, they give you a pot that you pay into, and then you've got to make that pot work for however long you live. So the longer you
mm,
live, it makes it worse, rather than the longer you live makes it better. So essentially, our pensions are now so bad that we have to take a hit on our pensions to pay for the lucrative pensions of people older than us that weren't expected to live very long and are now living longer because of advancements in medical science. Right? So those have all changed. We don't get work pensions. In the 80s, Thatcher not only privatised huge amounts of privatised huge amounts of public services, which makes it, which makes up the base cost to access these necessary services much higher, which means people have less consumptive power, which means that they feel less worse off. So they feel more worse off. Sorry, millennials and Zoomers are like that.
mm,
And there's also the issue that we have with things like the demutualization of the building societies in the 80s and things like that too. That stuff that millennials and Zoomers just completely missed out on because it all just happened at an era of deregulation. Like when my dad was my age, he had his first house on the cards. He had stocks and shares. He was a member of a building society. Like he had
mm.
all of these things, and we have literal nothing. And then we're gonna have a
Oh yeah,
social care crisis because there's just no access to it. And the
like
difference I have, go for it, sorry.
Zoomers needs to be angry. Like that's what's missing. There's no anger towards you
Mhm.
know, like we're going to be working harder for less money, for less benefits,
Mhm.
with less rights, and people are just accepting that and thinking, oh, well, that's fine, that's how it's meant to be. We're the first generation that's going to be worse off
Mhm.
than our parents. Like I don't know how I'm gonna like I'm not gonna beat around the bush. Like I'm not from like I'm from a working class family, but I'm not like worried about getting by. Like I have a
Mhm.
safety net if I need it, but I don't know how I'm going to afford a house. I don't know how I'm going to actually get on in life and afford the things that were so easy. But like people older just don't understand the struggle. Like my grandma's like, oh, it's fine, you'll work it out. We did back in our day. You just need to save your money up and you'll be able to afford a house. I'm like, that's not how it works anymore. Like
No, yeah,
you come from
yeah.
a time when you could just walk into a place and go, can I have a job, please? And they'll give you a job.
And they had like houses were affordable during your 20s. You could get on mortgages, may have had higher interest rates, right? But it was the reason why they were affordable was because the interest rates were higher. It's only the low
Yeah.
interest rates we have at the moment that means that property has become this booming speculative industry rather than being used for its functional utility, which is where people fucking live, right? So we've been
Mm.
kind of like investors have been drunk on low interest rates for ages, and it's fucking destroyed the housing sector.
Yeah.
And again, we talk about like pensions and things like the access to the building societies and stuff. And obviously, millennials grew up. People my age, I'm 30, 31 in 2 weeks' time now. Um,
Mm.
and we grew up being sold this dream of the way our parents had it, right?
Yeah.
And that dream was basically taken away from us during the global financial crisis when we were literally just as we were about to enter the workforce, just as we were leaving or starting university, right? And
Mm.
so we were promised all of this. If we just went to school, we got our good grades, we got a proper vocation, we could then get the picket fence and a house and the kids and the
Yeah.
car and have a comfortable life and then retire on a pension, right? And we've seen that taken away from us and we're angry. We're absolutely livid about it. We're
Yeah.
apoplectic with rage in that having what everybody else got access to taken away. And millennials, when you look at the polling, are more socialist than Zoomers. And I think that's
Yeah.
because, yes, you're right, Zoomers aren't angry because they don't know. They don't know what it was like. They've grown up in a
Yeah.
world where it's just the gig economy, where there's no benefits, there's no paid sick leave, there's none of this shit. And there's no proper like,
Well, yeah. Like
pension to look forward to. It's all just,
the difference between your generation and mine is that I think your generation knows better what it's missing out on, and like
exactly.
when you're promised something and you're like, oh, you can see the direct like effect of how good it can be, and then you have it directly taken away from you. The difference is like my generation, and we're not even that apart generation wise, but like because you were promised it and I wasn't, like we were literally taught in school that we probably won't be able to own a house. Like I was literally told in sixth form, it's
Jesus.
it's like, hey, you're gonna have to be like, how there's that whole thing like that school doesn't teach you the skills you need to survive and tax and all this sort of stuff and bills. We were literally
Mhm.
taught in sixth form, like, hey, it's going to be difficult. You probably won't be able to own a home. You will have to rent, basically. Like, we were literally told straight up, it's not going to be the way your parents had it. It wasn't that we were sold a lie. We were literally told, you essentially, in the nicest way possible, you're fucked. That's literally it. That's what we were told.
Brilliant. That sounds great.
And that's why no one's angry, because people um, look to schools and education for guidance, and if they're told by education you're fucked, they're just going to accept that. They're going to go, oh, that's the way it is because schools told me I'm fucked, therefore that's the way it is, and I'm just going to accept that. But like,
Okay.
there's no anger because people just assume that's the way it's meant to be, and it doesn't have to be that way, and people need to see that it doesn't have to be that way. And like my generation just seemed to have just accepted it. Oh, it's fine. I'll go to university, I'll have fun and party, then I'll just work and rent until I die, and that's life. And it's like it's not like that. It shouldn't be like that.
100%, absolutely.
Like
So that's one of
it's
the things. Like, I understand
depressing
that
as
like
fuck.
a lot of my followers come from Twitter and TikTok, and like I hope that, especially on TikTok, that I'm engaging with people from the Zoomer kind of age group, and that's what I want to do with my
Yeah.
content. I want to say, look, this is the positive vision that we can have to make the future better. There's the thing
Yeah.
that like, but like essentially like this kind of like the I want to put forward this idea of this is what they took from you as agitprop for them basically, and say, look,
Yeah.
there was a more egalitarian world economically that existed where people, even for any no matter what background you came from, there were these systems in place that made sure everyone got at least the opportunity to succeed and to be
Mm.
able to not succeed like become a fucking millionaire, right? Because at this point it basically becomes there's this kind of this either you live in drudgery and become a barista and from birth and from graduation
Yeah.
until death, or you become the next Gary V. You become an angel investor, or you get rich on crypto, or you become like a famous YouTuber or streamer or whatever. You become famous, and there's
That's
this
that's
huge dichotomy.
that that's why people fall for this so easily. That's why people fall into this crypto thing so easily in this YouTube thing, because they the only glimpse of a positive life that we get shown is people like that. It's not, because my ambition is I want a house. I just want a house that I can live in. I don't want to be like at the mercy of a landlord. I don't want to be at the mercy of someone like Graham and his smug little face. I want to be able to, you know, have my own home and not
Mm,
have to worry about that sort of thing.
yeah,
But that's just a thing that's not really, it's become a running joke that we just won't be able to have a house. That I just won't be able to have a house. Like, haha, like your parents could, but you won't. Lol. You know?
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Like Andy Stripe in the comments saying it looks like easy money. It's a scam. People just see the crypto thing and they're like, oh, it's easy money, but it's not.
Again, it's
It's
just again, it's like when things are so bleak, why not take the chance
yeah.
on at the casino? Why not roll the dice at the casino? Right, go up to the roulette tables and put all your money on zero. Like
Mm,
when the
yeah.
when the world when you literally when the worldview that's presented to you is get lucky or die, like get
Mm.
lucky or a life of indentured servitude to capital. Like why wouldn't you just take the risk? Just take a punt on something like the we're all gonna make it, fear of missing out type stuff from crypto, right?
Like, just to say quickly, like before we move on, there are so many people who are going to university because they want to postpone being put into the rat race. Like, they're not going to university because they want to, like, have a career or study a certain thing. They're just going, okay, well, I'm going to go into the world of work and I'm going to be fucked over and I'm not going to be able to own a home. But at least with university, I'll have 3 years of fun before I go into that. So what I'll
Mm.
do is I'll lumber myself with debt and you know, go to university, but at least I'll have 3 years of fun before I utterly ruin my life because there's nothing else for me. And people feel so disillusioned. But like, who was it? Who was it? There was that Labour MP who said many years ago that freedom and voting is based on the freedom to choose. And if you don't own anything and you don't have like property and you don't have anything to sort of fall back on, you feel like you don't have any choice. You feel like you have nothing to vote for because you don't have anything to fall back on. And I think there are so many people who just sort of they've just got this belief that nothing's going to change because they are so destitute.
Yeah. I totally feel that. I totally feel that. It's so like the wild kind of polarity of success and failure as it exists now. Um,
Mm,
yeah, it's pretty wild. And what the worst part is obviously more people are going to go to university to try and delay that period of being put
yeah,
into like the world of work. And obviously Tories have just changed the repayment scheme for student loans to even cripple students even fucking further, making it even harder for working class people to be able to want to go to university in the first place.
no.
Like,
Although there is a benefit.
go
Remember,
on.
anyone who goes to university leaves to the left of Chairman Mao. So
Yeah.
so there is hope on the horizon.
I mean, if everyone's gonna leave to the left of Chairman Mao, then maybe we will have the scorched earth land reform that this country needs.
Oh, yeah, by the time that like my generation have gone through university, there won't be any landlords left because they will all have been killed.
I'm sorry.
By the time my generation has gone through university, there won't be any landlords left because they will all have been killed.
Oh, in Minecraft, theoretically, obviously.
Oh, in Minecraft, theoretically, for legal reasons, that is a joke. Roblox landlords and their um,
Yeah,
Robux
yeah,
and things.
yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I mean, maybe we'll get the land reform we need, but again, I think Bilderberg is right in that what we need is huge like amounts of social housing, right? Ash Sarkar had a good plan from Ash Sarkar had a good plan that she was talking about on Twitter about how essentially what we do need the best ways of changing the housing sector are to essentially build loads of social housing, increase interest rates a little bit, and then cyberbully them.
Yeah. What the hell is Phil the Burn going on about in the
I'm
comments?
just gonna ban him.
Bruh, absolute bootlicker. I bet it's Graham.
I hope it is. I hope it is. I hope it is Graham.
Graham.
Graham. Oh, the problem is they think they're triggering me, and I'm just like, I just don't really care. Like, whatever. I'm trans on the internet. Like, do you think I've not dealt with this
Yeah.
shit before? Like,
Mm.
whatever. And they force you to pay the student loan. I think I forget the exact changes that it was. I'm gonna have to go back and re-research that. They made like the loan terms even worse, and the amount that you start repaying them even lower. So essentially,
Yeah, they have.
people who are graduating and then earning around a medium income, I think if they essentially paid over a 50%, once you get if they get into the 40% tax bracket, they end up having to pay over a 50% marginal tax rate.
Yeah.
So it's super fucked at this point in time. And I think didn't they change the length of time at which that you have to keep paying it before it gets forgiven? I think it was. Written
Yeah, I
off for
think it
40 years
used.
rather than 30. That's the one, Jim. Yeah, Jim Clark in chat.
Yeah. Yeah, 40 years, so I'll be 60 when it gets written off.
Yay.
Yay.
Also, future YouTube viewers, if you're watching this segment in future on YouTube, please like and subscribe. It's totally free to like, subscribe, drop a comment, and ring the bell. If you ring the bell, notify you when I go live as well. And you can also go into the description box in the bottom of this video, and that will link you to my Twitch channel where you can also follow me on there. And when I'm on live, when I can't be live on YouTube because I might be watching copyrighted content. So yeah, please feel free to drop a follow, and then any financial support is appreciated. I have a Patreon now as well, which will also be in the description box too.
Ooh.
And that's the end of that segment for YouTube. So I'm gonna stop recording now.